My name is Evie, and I'm 29 years old. The night my life split into before and after started with a family dinner I never wanted to attend in the first place. It was a Sunday evening when I pushed open the front door of my parents' mansion in Scottsdale, Arizona. 35 relatives were packed into every corner of the living room. Porch. Folding chairs borrowed from the local church were arranged in neat rows, long folding tables were covered in matching white tablecloths, and the air was heavy with the smell of roasted meat and expensive red wine. As the door swung open, every single person turned to look at me. Nobody smiled. Nobody said my name. Not one person stood up to give me a hug. Porch. A few of my cousins glanced at me for a split second before looking right back down at their plates, as if I were a delivery driver who had walked into the wrong house. I should have turned around and left right then, but I didn't. I scanned the room and found an empty chair at the far end of the long table, pushed almost into the hallway. Porch. It stood there isolated, like a display set up specifically to make a point. Food was already being passed around, but no one offered me a plate or shifted over to make room. I just sat there like a ghost while they laughed and talked loudly about promotions, baby showers, and newly purchased vacation homes. Obviously, I wasn't considered part of any of those life milestones. Porch. Then my mother stood up. She walked straight over to the wall lined with family photos. Every single one was set in matching custom silver frames arranged like badges of honor for this perfect family. She started taking them down, one by one. Every photo that included my face was taken off the wall. The frames clinked together, the glass making a sharp sound in the room. Porch. She didn't say a word until she reached a trash can placed by the dining table, positioned as if the whole family had been waiting for this exact moment. She tossed every photo of me into the trash, turned around to face the crowded room, and spoke loud enough for every single person to hear clearly. She declared that I was taking advantage of everyone and draining the family dry. Porch. My father didn't stop her. He looked across the table, his gaze sharp, and demanded that I pay back every single cent it cost to raise me, announcing to the entire room that I was nothing more than a failed investment. My sister, Brooke, pushed her chair back, walked over to me, and shoved me roughly toward the front door right in front of everyone. Porch. She had that same fake smirk she had when we were kids, the kind of look that said she had won again, even though I didn't even know what we were competing for. I didn't cry, I didn't argue, and I didn't beg for an explanation. I picked up my bag from the floor, walked out the front doors, and didn't look back once. They thought my silence meant I was giving up. Porch. They thought that was the end of the story. What they didn't know was that for the past 3 months, I had been quietly tracking what they were doing with my name. That dinner wasn't the end. It was just the final confirmation I needed, before I stopped watching and started taking action. The drive from Scottsdale back to my apartment in Phoenix takes 45 minutes. Porch. I barely remember the road. My hands wouldn't stop shaking on the steering wheel. It wasn't because of the cruel things they said, but because their actions confirmed a harsh truth. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was just an entry on a financial ledger, a debt, an asset they thought they owned, and could handle however they wanted. Porch. When I got home, I didn't turn on the TV, I didn't call a friend, and I didn't post anything on social media. I went straight to my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and stared at the blank screen until my breathing evened out. Then I opened a new document and typed a single line at the top in capital letters, making sure I would never forget why I was doing this. This is not about hurt feelings. Porch. This is about what they did to my name. The glow of the screen was the only light in the apartment. Outside, the neon lights of Phoenix were still flashing, and the city kept moving just like any other night. But inside, I was completely rebuilding everything I thought I knew about my family. Porch. My mother, Patricia Mercer, is 58 years old and a senior agent at one of the biggest real estate brokerages in Scottsdale. She is the kind of person who sends out studio-shot family holiday cards every Christmas, and always knows the exact price tag of everything. For as long as I can remember, she had complete control over the family finances. Porch. Whenever I questioned any of her choices, her favorite line was always that she understood money and I didn't. My father, Robert Mercer, is 61 and owns Mercer and Sons Construction, a business started by his father that he spent his life building up. He is a typical businessman who loves to stand on the hard work of others, while giving long speeches about building success with your own two hands. Porch. At every major moment in my life, like when I graduated college, when I moved out, or when I chose a career path he didn't approve of, he made sure to remind me exactly how much money it cost them to raise me. My sister Brooke is 34 and serves as the CFO of my father's company. Porch. She was always the golden child who could do no wrong, with perfect grades, a perfect husband, and a perfect home just 3 streets away from our parents. She loves posting inspirational quotes on social media. But during family conflicts, she never said a single word to stand up for me. Porch. We were the Mercer family, the respectable Arizona family that wore matching holiday sweaters and took carefully posed photos at every barbecue, graduation, and church service. But away from the cameras, things were completely different. When I was 22, I told my parents I was going to pursue graphic design instead of joining the family business. Porch. My mother called it a phase and asked when I was going to get a real job. At the Thanksgiving table, my father joked that I was the artistic one in the family, using the same tone you would use to talk about a pet that was cute but not very smart. Every choice I made that didn't fit their plan became another debt they decided I owed them. Porch. During college, my mother insisted on opening a joint bank account with me. She said it was just to help me manage my bills so I wouldn't mess up my credit score. I was 19, exhausted, and signed whatever paperwork she put in front of me. Porch. She set up online banking on my laptop, saved all the passwords, and warned me not to change them, because if I missed a payment, she was the one who would have to fix the problem. Years later, after I moved to Phoenix with my own apartment and job, she was still the one who had my social security number memorized. Porch. She still insisted that my important mail be sent to their house because she claimed it was safer. I used to think it was just about control. I thought it was annoying, but maybe somewhat normal for a strict family. It wasn't until 3 months before that dinner, when certain notices started arriving, that I realized this wasn't just about control. This was illegal activity. Porch. It started 3 months earlier when I received a letter from a bank I had never heard of, thanking me for applying for a personal loan. I assumed it was junk mail and threw it in the trash. A week later, another envelope arrived regarding a newly approved line of credit. Porch. At almost the exact same time, my credit monitoring app popped up with an alert, showing my score had suddenly dropped for no apparent reason. I paid off my single credit card in full every month, and my student loans were completely current. Nothing I had done could explain that drop. Porch. I took a screenshot and told myself I would look into it over the weekend, but work got busy, and I pushed it to the back of my mind. On the night I was thrown out of the house, I stopped ignoring it. I logged into the official government credit reporting site and requested my full file from all 3 major bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Porch. While waiting for the PDF files to generate, I forced myself to sit still and take deep breaths. Making moves out of pure anger leads to mistakes, and I couldn't afford a single mistake. While waiting, I went through old emails searching for any clues linked to accounts I didn't recognize. Deep in my spam folder, I found an email that made my heart freeze. Porch. It was from my maternal grandmother, Helen Whitmore, sent 2 weeks before she passed away almost 2 years ago. The subject line read, "Don't trust them, sweetheart." My hand hovered over the trackpad, trembling. Grandmother Helen was the only person in the family who ever made me feel like I truly belonged. My parents had told me she passed away from a sudden stroke. Porch. The funeral was kept very small, and my mother handled every single arrangement. During the last few weeks of Helen's life, I was kept away from visiting her under the excuse that she was too weak for guests. I clicked open the email. The main text was corrupted, loading only broken fragments. I could only make out a few disjointed words. Changed the documents. Don't sign anything they put in front of you. Your uncle knows the truth. The rest was filled with unreadable code and broken symbols. Someone had logged into my account and deliberately ruined that specific email. I was almost certain I knew who Helen was trying to warn me about. She had tried to share a crucial truth that she felt needed to be written down, and someone in my family made sure that warning never reached me. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Whatever they were hiding was far more serious than a bad dinner or being cast out of the family. I wasn't going to stop until I uncovered everything they had taken from me and held them fully accountable for the consequences. I sat at the kitchen table until 2:14 in the morning, trying to figure out what my grandmother had been trying to say. The email remained open on the screen. I refreshed it 6 times and tried opening it in different browsers, but nothing worked. The few readable fragments kept looping through my mind. Change the documents. Don't sign anything. Your uncle knows the truth. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you sooner. The rest was just digital junk. It wasn't a system glitch. Someone had intentionally corrupted the message. Helen sent it 2 weeks before she passed away. My mother had access to my email address from years ago when she set up that joint account under the guise of helping me manage my finances. She could have deleted the email entirely, but she didn't. Maybe she thought corrupting the text was enough. Or maybe she never expected me to look this deep. The email mentioned my uncle. Your uncle knows the truth. That meant Uncle Marcus, my father's younger brother. I hadn't seen him in 8 years. After a sudden incident that no one ever explained to me, he was completely cut off from the family. At Grandmother Helen's funeral, he walked up to me and was about to speak when my mother appeared out of nowhere, grabbed my arm tightly, and pulled me away before he could finish a sentence. She warned me coldly back then not to speak to him, claiming he was no longer part of the family. When I asked her later what happened, she told me Marcus was dishonest and had tried to take money from my paternal grandmother, Ruth, years ago. She said they caught him, and that was the end of the story. I believed her back then because I had no reason not to. But now, staring at a ruined warning message from a woman who had passed away, I began to question whose version of the truth I had been listening to all along. I closed the email. I couldn't fix the corrupted file, but I could locate the secrets that were hidden away. The 3 credit bureau reports finally downloaded. I took a deep breath, in through my nose and out through my mouth, reminding myself that hasty decisions cause errors I couldn't afford. I opened the first PDF and scrolled quickly past the accounts I recognized. Student loans being paid on schedule, credit card paid in full every month, auto loan current. Then I reached a section I had never seen before. Accounts list as authorized user or guarantor. My throat tightened immediately. Account type, commercial business loan. Creditor, First Arizona Bank. Borrower, Mercer and Sons Construction LLC. Guarantor, Evelyn Rose Mercer. Original amount, $400,000. Current balance, $412,716. Status, delinquent over 90 days past due. I read those lines 3 times. My name, my social security number, my signature. I had never signed a single document for Mercer and Sons Construction. I had never stepped foot inside First Arizona Bank, and I didn't even know my father had a loan of that size. But there it was in black and white, tying my name directly to a massive debt I had never agreed to take on. The date the account was opened caught my attention. March 15th of last year, my birthday. On that birthday, my mother casually told me on the phone that they weren't going to host a big gathering because the company was too busy, promising we would celebrate properly the following year. I stayed in Phoenix that weekend because there was no point driving nearly an hour to Scottsdale for an empty house. Now the picture was clear. They needed me away and distracted. They needed me anywhere except in a position to ask why someone was using my name to guarantee a $400,000 loan. I checked the other two credit reports. The same loan appeared on both, but that wasn't all. There was also a credit card opened 14 months ago with an unpaid balance of $11,400, also marked as delinquent. The contact address listed for every account was my parents' mansion. The phone number was my mother's cell phone. The email address on file was one I had never seen before. emercerbusiness@gmail.com. They had created an email using my initials specifically to manage accounts I never opened and debts I never authorized. I leaned back against the chair and looked up at the ceiling. Both accounts were opened during periods when my workload was heaviest, and I couldn't visit home. Both required my signature, which I had never provided. They hadn't just misused my personal information. They had engineered the entire setup. They timed everything carefully, running this scheme with the structure of a calculated business operation. When mistreatment shifts from an emotional hurt to clear, documented evidence, something inside you changes. The pain stops, and the focus turns entirely to accountability. I fell asleep on the couch without realizing it and woke up with the laptop still open as morning light filtered through the blinds. It was Monday morning at 6:47 a.m. My phone was sitting on the coffee table. The screen looked like a war zone of notifications. My father had called 30 times since 6 a.m. Brooke had called 20 times. My mother had sent 47 text messages, and there were 3 voicemails waiting. I picked up the phone and started reading my mother's messages, in order. 6:02 a.m. Evie, we need to talk. Call me back. 6:15 a.m. Honey, please, this is about the company. 6:34 a.m. I know you're upset, but this is much bigger than last night. 6:41 a.m. Your father is under a lot of stress. Please don't make things worse. 6:45 a.m. We're family, Evie. Family always works things out. I almost laughed out loud. Family. She used that word as if it held a sacred meaning, like a shield she could hide behind after everything she had done. I played my father's first voicemail. His voice was tense and controlled, the tone he used when he was extremely angry but trying not to show it. Evelyn, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to call me back immediately. Things are happening at the company that you don't understand. Don't do anything reckless. The second voicemail was shorter and firmer. After everything we've done for you, you owe this family. Call me back. I placed the phone face down on the table. They weren't contacting me because they felt guilty about how I was treated the night before. They weren't apologizing for throwing my photos in the trash. They were frantically trying to reach me because they realized I might finally be checking the financial records. And they were terrified of what I would discover. The phone vibrated again with a new call from an unknown number. The caller ID displayed Mercer and Sons Construction, accounting debt. I watched it ring 3 times before letting it go to voicemail. A woman's voice came through, speaking softly and nervously. Miss Mercer, my name is Daniela from accounting. I probably shouldn't be making this call, but things have been happening at the company lately. I don't know all the details, but please be careful. They've been bringing up your name constantly. The recording ended. Someone inside my father's company was concerned enough to risk calling me with a warning. That meant whatever was going on had grown so severe that even regular employees were picking up on the irregularities. People don't reach out with warnings unless the situation is already unraveling. 2 years earlier, at Grandmother Helen's funeral, I stood in the back row of a small chapel, trying to process the loss of the only person in the family who saw me for who I really was. It was a gloomy November day with only about 40 people attending. My mother had taken full control of the arrangements, ensuring everything looked refined and respectable, exactly matching the image she wanted to project to the public. After the service, a man walked toward me. I almost didn't recognize him at first. It was Uncle Marcus. He looked much older than I remembered, with graying hair and deep lines around his eyes. But his gaze was still sharp. George. He stopped in front of me and called my name, saying he needed to tell me something about my grandmother. He didn't get to finish. My mother appeared beside me like a shadow, gripping my arm so hard it left a bruise, saying we were leaving immediately. Marcus tried to speak again, saying I had a right to know the truth. George. My mother's voice dropped to a cold, severe tone, telling him he had no right to speak to her daughter, and reminding him he was no longer part of the family. She pulled me away before I could ask what he meant. When I asked about it later, she repeated her story that he was dishonest and had tried to take money from grandmother Ruth years ago. George. I accepted it back then because I had no reason to doubt her word. But now, looking at a $412,000 loan carrying a signature I never wrote, I had to reconsider who was actually telling the truth. I checked my voicemail again and realized I had missed another message. It was from an unfamiliar number, spoken in a concise, professional tone. Good morning, Miss Mercer. George. This is Raymond Chen from the Commercial Loan Department at First Arizona Bank. We need to speak with you urgently regarding guarantor obligations on the account ending in 743D9. There was a short pause. The account is currently delinquent. As the personal guarantor, you carry joint legal responsibility for the outstanding balance. Another pause followed. The current amount due is $412,716.43. George. Please contact us within 48 hours to discuss resolution options. If we do not hear from you, the bank may initiate collection activities and potential legal proceedings. The message ended. I played it a second time. $412,000. A debt I never authorized, a signature I never provided, for a company where I had never been employed. George. If I didn't respond within 48 hours, they would proceed with legal measures and collectors. My parents hadn't just pushed me out of the family the night before. They had set me up to take the fall for financial failures they had been managing for years. And I was completely done taking the blame for their choices. George. I opened my laptop and searched for an address in Tucson, Arizona, under the name Marcus Mercer. He had tried to warn me once before, and someone had cut him off before he could speak. This time, I was going to let him share the entire story. Before driving to Tucson, I called the bank. I sat at the kitchen table for 20 minutes staring at the number, rehearsing what I needed to say in my head. George. Before I could talk myself out of it, I dialed. After 3 minutes of hold music, the line clicked. Raymond Chen speaking. It was the voice from the message. I gave my name, provided the account number, and explained that I was returning his call regarding the loan. There was a pause on the line. Yes, Miss Mercer. Thank you for calling back. George. We've been attempting to reach you for several weeks, he explained in measured professional terms. Mercer and Sons had taken out a $400,000 loan 18 months ago and had missed the last 4 monthly payments. As the personal guarantor, I was legally responsible for the full balance, accumulated interest, and late fees. George. The loan documents indicated that I signed the guarantee agreement on March 15th of last year. I waited until he finished before giving my response. Mr. Chen, I never signed that document. I have never walked into your bank, and I had no knowledge of this loan until last night. A long silence followed. When he spoke up again, his tone was much more cautious. George. Miss Mercer, asserting that a signature was unauthorized is a very serious matter. It requires filing an official dispute, and it will likely require involving law enforcement. I told him I understood and requested copies of every document bearing my name. He agreed to email them within 24 hours. Before hanging up, he lowered his voice slightly and added, Off the record, Miss Mercer. George. You aren't the first person connected to this company to call us expressing serious concerns. Be careful about who you trust. The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, his words repeating in my mind. Not the first. That meant someone else had already noticed discrepancies and raised questions. I needed to find out what had happened to them. Orch. The drive from Phoenix to Tucson takes 2 hours down Interstate 10, with open desert stretching out under a clear blue sky lined with tall saguaro cactuses. The long drive gave me time to think about everything I knew and everything that had been kept from me. I located the address for Marcus Mercer in a quiet neighborhood in South Tucson. Orch. I decided not to call ahead because I didn't want to give him time to decide whether to see me. I wanted to see his genuine reaction when I showed up, to know whether he would share the truth or turn away. I remembered Uncle Marcus from my childhood as the fun uncle. When my mother wasn't looking, he would slip me extra desserts at Thanksgiving. Orch. When my father was constantly busy with work, Marcus was the one who taught me how to ride a bike. He made me laugh and made me feel like it was okay to just be a kid. Then one summer, he simply disappeared from our lives. There were no explanations or goodbyes, no more extra desserts, bike rides, or jokes that made my mother roll her eyes. Orch. It was as if he had been completely erased from our family history. Whenever I asked about him, my parents shifted the subject. When I pushed for answers, my mother insisted he had done something unforgivable and that we were never to speak of him again. I was 11 years old at the time and accepted what I was told. Orch. Now, at 29, I was driving toward the man my family had written off, hoping to understand why they were trying to do the exact same thing to me. The house was smaller than I imagined, a simple adobe-style home on a quiet street lined with Palo Verde trees. The yard was landscaped with gravel and native plants, and an older pickup truck sat in the driveway. Orch. There was nothing flashy about it, no signs of the wealth or status my parents used to measure a person's worth. I parked across the street and sat in the car for a moment. I hadn't seen this man in 8 years. What if my mother had been telling the truth? What if he really was untrustworthy? Orch. Then I remembered the expression on my mother's face at the funeral, the firm grip on my arm, and the visible tension when Marcus tried to talk to me. People don't react with that level of fear unless someone holds information worth keeping hidden. I stepped out of the car, walked up the stone path to the front door, and knocked twice. I heard footsteps inside, followed by silence. Orch. A deep, cautious voice spoke from behind the door, asking who was there. Uncle Marcus, it's me, Evie. Evelyn Mercer. Robert's daughter. There was a long pause, and I could hear heavy breathing on the other side. Then came the sound of several locks turning. The door opened. He looked older than I remembered, with graying hair and deep lines around his eyes. Orch. But as he saw me standing there, his expression shifted, showing recognition and a sense of visible relief rather than surprise. I was wondering when you would finally show up, he said. Come inside, Evie. We have a lot to talk about. His living room was comfortable and plainly furnished, filled with books, a worn leather couch, and a single lamp casting warm light across the room. Orch. On one wall hung a framed photograph that made me stop in my tracks. It was Grandmother Helen. It was the only family photo visible in the house. Marcus noticed where I was looking. She was the only one who believed me, he said. The only one who knew the truth. He poured me a glass of water, and we sat down opposite each other. Orch. I explained everything that had happened. The dinner, the photos in the trash, the credit reports, the $400,000 loan with my unauthorized signature, and the corrupted email from Grandmother Helen. He listened quietly without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with every detail. When I finished, he sat in silence for a long time before leaning forward. Orch. 8 years ago, I came across financial records I wasn't supposed to see. I was helping Robert with some paperwork for the company and noticed major irregularities in the accounts. The movement of funds didn't add up. When I looked deeper, I found a separate account where company funds were being redirected into personal accounts. But that wasn't the worst part. He paused before continuing. Orch. I found massive regular withdrawals coming out of your grandmother Ruth's accounts. Patricia held power of attorney over Ruth's finances under the reason of assisting with her care. In reality, she was using that access to withdraw funds whenever she wanted. Your grandmother had no idea because she trusted Patricia completely. I asked him what happened when he confronted them. Porch. I told them it had to stop, the money had to be returned, or I would report it, he said, his voice flat. Your mother looked me in the eye and said if I spoke a word to anyone, she would ruin my reputation within a week. The next day, relatives started calling me. Patricia told everyone I was the one taking money from Ruth. Porch. She completely flipped the narrative, turning me into the bad actor while covering her own actions, and everyone believed her. I sat there processing what he was saying. For 8 years, I had assumed my uncle was the one who acted improperly. For 8 years, I had been told a completely fabricated story. He spread his hands out. Porch. I've spent 8 years on the outside watching all of this, waiting for someone else to see what was actually going on. He looked at me, his eyes showing a spark of quiet hope. It looks like you finally see it. I asked him about the dinner and why they chose to handle things so publicly. His answer made everything fall into place. That dinner wasn't about punishing you, Evie. Porch. It was a strategy. He explained that he had been monitoring public filings regarding the business. Mercer and Sons was facing severe financial trouble due to lost contracts, failed bids, and mounting debts. They needed you overwhelmed and off balance. Porch. They wanted you upset enough to stay away, but financially or emotionally stressed enough that when they reached out with a fake offer to fix things, you would agree to whatever terms they set. I remembered seeing official documents sitting on the table before Brooke shoved me out the door. Documents with my name printed on them. I asked what they had intended for me to sign. Porch. It could have been anything, Marcus said. A loan extension, an asset transfer, or a power of attorney agreement so they could continue using your credit profile without needing your signature every time. Porch. He explained that they had attempted a similar tactic with him years ago, creating a conflict, cutting off contact, and then calling months later offering a resolution if he signed paperwork to clear things up. When he refused, they moved to damage his reputation completely. Porch. Whatever you do, Evie, do not sign any document they place in front of you, no matter how reasonable it sounds or how emotional they get. He paused, looking hesitant. There's one more thing regarding your grandmother Helen's passing. I can't prove it legally, but Helen was not severely ill. She was entirely clear-headed until 2 weeks before she passed away. Porch. Then suddenly, she was gone, and her final will turned out to be completely different from what she had personally described to me. My heart skipped a beat as I asked what he meant by different. He stood up, walked over to a filing cabinet in the corner, unlocked the bottom drawer and retrieved a small safe. Inside were documents, photos, and a black USB flash drive. Porch. Your grandmother handed this to me 2 weeks before she passed. She told me to keep it secure if anything happened to her. He explained that Helen had called him unexpectedly, worried about things she had uncovered regarding Patricia and Robert. She told him she had updated her actual will and hidden a copy in a secure location. Porch. She asked Marcus to give the USB drive to me whenever I was ready to handle the truth. He held it out to me. I think you're ready now. I took the drive from his hand. It was small and lightweight, not looking like something that could shift everything, but I knew its value. Before leaving, I asked him about a name mentioned in my grandmother's email, Douglas Whitman. Porch. Marcus's expression changed, showing immediate recognition and concern. Douglas Whitman was Helen's estate attorney. He drafted her will and submitted the paperwork to probate court. He was supposed to manage things ethically, but the version of the will certified by the court was not the version Helen had shared with me. I asked where I could locate Douglas now. Porch. Marcus explained that he retired immediately after the estate was settled and moved into a high-end assisted living facility in Mesa. Then he paused, offering a faint, dry smile. The interesting part is who volunteers at that exact facility 3 days a week. Before he even stated the name, I already knew the answer. Your grandmother Ruth. Porch. I placed the USB drive securely in my pocket and began the drive back toward Phoenix. My grandmother's warnings kept turning over in my mind. Whatever was saved on that drive had concerned her deeply enough that she felt her safety was at risk. And now, the drive was in my hands. I didn't return to my apartment that night. Porch. I parked outside Marcus's house, set my laptop on the steering wheel, and plugged the USB drive into the port. The folder opened, displaying 2 files inside, a PDF document and an audio file. I opened the PDF first. The screen displayed a scan of a handwritten document. At the top, written in a careful, elegant script, were the words, "The last will and testament of Helen Marie Whitmore." Porch. The date was October 3rd. Exactly 2 weeks before my grandmother passed away. I recognized that handwriting instantly. I still had boxes in my closet filled with birthday cards she had written in that exact same style. Those cards told me I was special and that I was loved. I had kept every single one because they were the only proof I had that someone in my family had truly seen me. Porch. The will was 3 pages long, filled with explicit details that left no room for interpretation. To Marcus, she left her collection of first edition books and $10,000, adding a personal note. For keeping your integrity when you lost everything else. To her other grandchildren, she left small cash gifts and personal keepsakes. Then I saw my name. Porch. To my granddaughter, Evelyn Rose Mercer, I leave the following: $180,000 from my savings account, my vacation cottage in Sedona, Arizona, and everything inside it, including my jewelry and personal manuscripts. Below the terms of the inheritance was a personal message. Evie has always been the only one in our family who could see through the performance. I trust her to use this wisely. Porch. Never let them dim your light. I read it 3 times. $180,000 in cash. A home in Sedona. I had been left with nothing. The version of the will that was certified by the probate court had given everything to my mother as the sole heir. I pulled out my phone, pulled up photos of the old birthday cards grandmother Helen had written, and compared the signatures. Porch. The fluid, rounded script matched perfectly. Then I searched online for the public record of the probated will and found its signature page. That signature was completely different. It was sharp, rigid, and awkward. It wasn't my grandmother's handwriting at all. My mother hadn't just altered the will. She had forged it entirely. Sitting in the dark car, I tapped on the audio file. Porch. The label read, "For Evie. Listen alone, duration, 4 minutes and 37 seconds. I put in my earbuds and pressed play. The recording was slightly muffled, sounding as if the phone had been placed too close while recording. But the voice was unmistakable. It was my grandmother, weak but resolute. "Evie, sweetheart, if you're listening to this, it means something has happened to me. Porch. I need you to know the truth about your mother and about what she's been doing. She altered my will, sweet girl. The document in the attorney's hands isn't mine. I tried to stop them, but Patricia has people who do what she tells them to do. I wrote a new will. The real one. I gave a copy to your Uncle Marcus because he's the only one I trust left. Porch. Everything I wanted to give you. The money, the house in Sedona. She's going to take it all. She'll act as if I left you nothing." Her voice trembled slightly. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you better. I'm sorry I didn't see her true character sooner. Don't let them make you feel small, Evie. You've always been the brave one. Porch. I love you and I have always loved you, even when they tried to make you feel like you didn't belong in this family." The recording ended with a soft click. I sat in the dead silence of the car, tears streaming down my face. It was the first time I had cried since the dinner. She knew. She knew what they were planning to do, and she tried to save me. Porch. And they silenced her before she could complete what she started. I wiped my tears, opened a browser on my laptop, and searched for property records in Sedona, Arizona. Knowing my grandmother's maiden name, I quickly narrowed down the results. Within minutes, I found it. a charming cottage in Oak Creek that Helen Whitmore had purchased in 1987. Then I pulled up the sale history. The property had been sold in April of the year following her passing, exactly 6 months after probate was finalized. The seller was listed as Patricia Mercer, acting as executor of the Helen Whitmore estate. The sale price was $245,000, sold to a real estate development firm in Phoenix. I did the math. The $180,000 in cash was gone. A property worth nearly $250,000 had been sold off. More than $400,000 had been stolen from my inheritance. But the situation was even worse than that. The timing of the company loan suddenly made total sense. Mercer and Sons had taken out that $400,000 loan immediately after the Sedona property was sold. They had used the money stolen from my grandmother to cover the company's financial hole. When those funds ran out, they used my name to secure another loan. Looking through the property records, I noticed another detail. The notary who certified the property transfer contract was the exact same person who had notarized the forged will. Same name, same license number. My mother had accomplices. This wasn't a desperate mistake made by one person. It was an organized system, a network of people willing to break state and federal laws for Patricia Mercer. I walked back into Marcus's house and shared what I had uncovered. He listened and nodded slowly, as if none of it surprised him. Then he told me there was someone else I needed to meet. Sitting in his living room was a man I vaguely recognized. Derek Mercer, Marcus's son and my cousin. I hadn't seen him since we were teenagers, back before everything fell apart. Now 32, he looked exhausted, working as an auto mechanic in Tucson. He shook my hand and said he had been waiting 5 years for another person in the family to see the truth. 5 years ago, when Derek was 27, he was just starting to build good credit and had purchased his first home, getting his life on track for the first time. Then he received a letter about a commercial loan he had never applied for, taken out through Mercer and Sons Construction, with his name listed as a co-signer. He had never signed any paperwork, but they held documents bearing his signature. The loan defaulted, and the bank came after him. He lost his home and was forced into personal bankruptcy at 27. They told everyone I was irresponsible, Derek said with a bitter smile. They claimed I must have signed something and forgotten about it. Even my own father believed them over me at first. After Derek's bankruptcy, Robert offered to handle the mess if Derek agreed to sign over a modest inheritance he was set to receive from a distant relative. Desperate, Derek signed. By the time he realized what was happening, he was left with nothing, while my parents had built a perfect cover story. The attorney handling my case was Douglas Whitman, Derek added. The same attorney who handled grandmother Helen's estate. Right after everything was finalized, he suddenly retired and moved into an assisted living facility in Mesa. Quite a coincidence, isn't it? We gathered around Marcus's kitchen table and began mapping out every person affected. Asterisk, Marcus, financially framed and cut off from the family. Asterisk Derek, signature forged, forced into bankruptcy, inheritance taken. Asterisk Evie, signature forged, saddled with $400,000 in debt, inheritance taken. Asterisk grandmother Ruth, gradually being drained of funds through power of attorney. Asterisk grandmother Helen, will forged, estate taken, silenced before she could speak. The pattern was unmistakable. Every victim was either outside Patricia's inner circle or had trusted her too completely to be on guard. Every theft occurred when the other person was facing a crisis or distracted. Every piece of key evidence passed through the same small circle: Patricia, Robert, and attorney Douglas Whitman. They specifically target people who won't fight back, Derek said. People who are too ashamed to talk about what happened, or people like my dad who no one would believe anyway. I looked at both of them. Well, this time they picked the wrong person. I opened my laptop and searched for attorney Douglas Whitman in Arizona. I pulled up his profile. an estate law specialist with 40 years of practice who retired abruptly 2 years ago, right after Helen's estate was settled, without giving an explanation. His current address was listed as Desert Bloom Senior Care in Mesa, Arizona. I located the facility's website and browsed their public information. Visitor logs were private, but the volunteer schedule was posted publicly. Scrolling through the list of names, I stopped when I saw a familiar entry. Ruth Mercer, reading program, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 p.m. My grandmother Ruth was volunteering at the exact same facility where Douglas Whitman was living, and she had been doing it for the past 18 months. That's no coincidence, I said. She's keeping an eye on him to make sure he doesn't say anything. Marcus shook his head. Or Patricia is using Ruth without her even realizing it. Ruth might just think she's doing charity work. Either way, Whitman is the key. If we can get him to talk, we can prove the will was forged. Before I left that evening, Derek stopped me at the door. There's one more thing about Douglas Whitman. I did a little digging. When my situation happened, Whitman didn't retire voluntarily. He was pushed out. Someone submitted an anonymous report regarding irregularities in his estate filings. The State Bar Association started an investigation, but before they could finish, he rushed his retirement, and the case was dropped. But the key detail is that the violations described in that report match exactly what they did to grandmother Helen's will. I stared at him. Someone else knew what was happening. Someone else had risked reporting it. Who submitted the report? I don't know, but the facility might have records of who visited Whitman around the time the report was filed. I gripped my car keys. Then that's going to be my first stop tomorrow morning. Late that night, I sat on my apartment floor surrounded by everything I had gathered over the past 48 hours. Papers covered the carpet like evidence at a crime scene. My laptop was open, and the printer hummed continuously. I compiled a comprehensive evidence log. 1. Grandmother Helen's USB drive containing the original will and her audio recording. 2. Credit reports showing the unauthorized fraudulent loans in my name. 3. Property records for the Sedona home that should have been mine. 4. Derek's detailed written statement regarding his forced bankruptcy. 5. Records showing Douglas Whitman's sudden retirement and his overlap with grandmother Ruth. The evidence was substantial, each piece damaging on its own, but I had no idea how to present it legally. Criminal charges, a civil lawsuit, both at the same time? Which court had jurisdiction? What were the statutes of limitations? I was a graphic designer, not an attorney. I could organize the information cleanly, but I needed a legal strategy. I opened my browser and searched for financial fraud and elder abuse attorneys in Phoenix, Arizona. Dozens of results appeared, mostly looking like typical low-end law firms. Then one listing stood out. Natalie Vance, J.D., specializing in elder financial abuse, estate fraud, and family financial crime. Former federal prosecutor, currently in private practice. The reviews described her as relentless and uncompromising against powerful interests. One comment caught my attention. Natalie helped me expose what my own brother did to my mother's estate. She held him fully accountable for every cent. If you have to take on your own family, she's the person you need. I saved her number and called first thing the next morning. Her office was located in a professional building in downtown Phoenix. It wasn't flashy, no marble floors or expensive leather furniture, just clean lines, rows of filing cabinets, and a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in years but retained sharp energy. Natalie Vance was in her late 40s with dark hair pulled back, reading glasses, and an intense gaze. She gave me a firm handshake. Your message mentioned an urgent situation. Family financial fraud usually is. Sit down and tell me everything. I came prepared. I had categorized the evidence, labeled each file, and created a timeline. I walked her through everything chronologically: the dinner, the credit reports, Uncle Marcus, the USB drive, and Douglas Whitman. She listened quietly without interrupting, taking occasional notes on a yellow legal pad. With every new detail, her expression grew more serious. When I finished, she remained silent for a long moment before setting her pen down. Miss Mercer. Evie. What your parents have done isn't just basic fraud. Orch. This is a systematic pattern of financial abuse carried out against multiple family members over several years. I asked if that helped our case. Substantially. Courts look for clear patterns. A single event can be argued as a mistake, but a decade-long series of actions demonstrates clear intent. She outlined the potential violations. Forgery regarding the will and loan documents. Orch. Elder financial abuse regarding their actions toward Ruth and Helen. Identity theft regarding you and Derek. Multiple counts of fraud. Conspiracy, if we can prove Robert and Patricia acted together. If we can demonstrate that Helen's will was forged, Natalie said, we're dealing with estate fraud, which is a major felony in Arizona. Natalie explained the two paths available. Orch. A criminal path involves submitting a complaint to the state attorney general so prosecutors can determine charges. A civil path involves suing Patricia and Robert directly for damages and recovery of assets. We can pursue both suits, she said. In fact, that's exact strategy we should use. A criminal investigation creates immense pressure, while a civil suit addresses your losses. Orch. She evaluated the strength of our evidence. The original will on the USB drive carried significant weight, but it required handwriting analysis. Douglas Whitman's testimony would be valuable if we could get him to speak. Your parents don't know we're building this case yet, Natalie warned. The moment they realize it, they may attempt to destroy records, coordinate stories, or transfer assets. Orch. We need to gather everything, secure our witnesses, and then move forward decisively. I asked how long that would take. If we work efficiently, 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Can you keep quiet that long? I thought about Brooke. There was something I hadn't mentioned yet. There's something else regarding my sister that needs to be checked. Before I could explain, Natalie's phone vibrated. Orch. She glanced at the screen and frowned. That's interesting. An attorney from Morrison and Blake just called. They represent Mercer and Sons Construction. She looked up at me. They're asking for a discussion regarding your loan obligations. How do they know you retained counsel? My stomach dropped. I hadn't told anyone I was meeting her. No one knew except the people I trusted. Orch. Your name is on that loan, and they know the bank is pursuing collection. They may simply be as assuming you would seek legal representation. But going forward, we need to be extremely cautious, she said firmly. Stop using your primary phone for these discussions. Get a separate burner phone. She then asked, you mentioned Brooke was pressured to sign documents leveraging her home? Orch. Yes, I added, and my mother set up some kind of pension plan for Brooke through the company. A family construction business setting up a pension plan for a daughter who serves as CFO? Natalie raised an eyebrow. Let me look into that. She pulled up public business filings for Mercer and Sons Construction, scanning corporate registry records, and filed retirement plans. Orch. She typed, clicked, and her frown deepened. Mercer and Sons Construction has no registered pension plan on file. There are 0 records with either the state government or the IRS. The blood drained from my face. If Brooke has been paying into a non-existent pension, where has her money been going? Orch. Your parents may have been exploiting their own daughter for years, using false promises of retirement security to fund their lifestyle or cover business shortfalls. I did the math quickly. Brooke has been CFO for 10 years. If she was contributing even a standard 6% of her salary, that's easily $80,000 to $90,000. Money that simply doesn't exist. Natalie pulled up another document. Orch. Here is a recent application for a line of credit. The collateral listed is a residential property in Paradise Valley. Brooke's address. The application date was 3 days ago. She looked directly at me. Evie, this document was submitted the day before your family dinner. Orch. That night wasn't just about humiliating you. It was a distraction so they could move forward with leveraging your sister's home. Natalie outlined our expanded strategy. If Brooke was unaware the pension was fake and didn't know about the line of credit application, she was another victim, and a victim could become a key witness. I mentioned I was meeting Brooke at 3 p.m. Good. George. But don't lay everything out immediately. Test the waters first. See if she's ready to listen or if she's still defending them, Natalie advised. Start with something concrete. The pension. Show her the lack of official filings. Let her work through the numbers herself. People accept facts much better when they discover them directly rather than being told. George. If she aligns with us, we'll have testimony from victims spanning 3 generations. This is no longer a simple family dispute, Natalie said. This case carries enough weight to hold your parents criminally accountable. I left Natalie's office and walked toward my car. My regular phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a text from my father. George. Evelyn, I know you've been asking questions around town. I don't know what Marcus has been telling you, but this stops now. You need to call me by Friday so we can handle this like a family. Otherwise, I will have no choice but to protect what belongs to us. Don't force my hand, I read it 3 times. Protect what belongs to us, as if anything they held had been earned legitimately. George. Don't force my hand. A blatant threat disguised as parental concern. I screenshotted the message, sent it to Natalie, and replied with 3 words. See you Friday. I deleted the thread and drove to meet my sister. The coffee bean on Camelback Road was filled with the aroma of roasted coffee beans and a quiet sense of tension. George. At 3:02 p.m., I pushed open the glass door as the chimes sounded overhead. Soft music played through hidden speakers, and afternoon patrons were scattered at small tables. Freelancers on laptops, parents with strollers, and a couple sharing a screen. Sitting in the far corner facing the entrance was my sister, Brooke. She looked like she was waiting for a severe verdict. George. She looked entirely different from the confident person at the dinner. The smug smile was gone, replaced by deep exhaustion visible in every line of her face. She had heavy dark circles under her eyes, and her usually immaculate hair was pulled back into a hasty ponytail. She gripped her coffee cup tightly, her knuckles white. The golden child was unraveling. George. I didn't fake a smile or put on the usual performance we used in family settings. I walked straight over and sat across from her. For a moment neither of us spoke. The last time we had been this close, she was roughly shoving me toward the door while our relatives watched. Brooke spoke first. I didn't think you'd come. I almost didn't. Silence stretched between us. George. I know you hate me, she said. After what happened at dinner, I don't hate you, Brooke. I just don't trust you. That's fair. She looked down at her coffee. I'm not sure I trust myself right now either. That was when I noticed her hand. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring, leaving a distinct pale mark where it used to be. Something major had happened that I didn't know about. George. Things are falling apart, Evie, she whispered. At the company, with Mom and Dad. I looked up sharply. How much do you know? Probably more than you think, but I want to hear what you found first. She took a deep breath. I'm the CFO, so I'm supposed to oversee all the accounts. But for the last 6 months, Dad has kept certain files locked, claiming they were executive level only. George. I found invoices for contractors that don't exist and payments to vendors I've never heard of. When I questioned it, Mom called me paranoid and told me to just do my job and leave the rest to them. She paused, her eyes reddening. Then, 3 weeks ago, Dad asked me to sign paperwork, calling it routine refinancing and restructuring. But when I looked closer, Evie, George, they were trying to use my house as collateral. My home. The one I bought with my own money, with Kevin. She stopped, touching the bare skin on her ring finger. Kevin left 2 weeks ago. He said he couldn't stand by and watch me ruin my future for a family that didn't care about me. I told him he was wrong, that family comes first. Her voice cracked. Now, I'm not so sure. George. I opened my folder and pulled out the first document. Brooke, I need to show you something, and I need you to look at it without making excuses for them." She nodded, her jaw tight but her focus clear. I slid the paper across the table. "This is a search record of all registered retirement plans associated with Mercer and Sons Construction in the state of Arizona." She looked at it, frowning. "It's empty." "Exactly. There is no registered pension plan, nothing filed with the state, nothing with the IRS, nothing exists." Her face went pale. "That's impossible. I've been paying into my pension for 10 years, 8% of my salary every month. Where did that money go?" "Brooke, you were told those funds were going into a corporate pension account, right? HR issued quarterly statements to you?" "Who sent you those statements?" The color drained from her face entirely. "Mom. She handles HR." I slid another paper across the table. "I had my attorney run the numbers. Over 10 years, 8% of your salary comes out to roughly $85,000 to $95,000 lost. The money that was supposed to be sitting in a retirement account was never deposited." She stared at the document, her hands trembling. "No. They wouldn't. They couldn't. They did, Brooke. They've done it to everyone." Her phone vibrated on the table. The screen lit up. "Mom." Neither of us moved. It rang 4 times before going silent. A text popped up. "Don't forget family dinner tonight. We need to discuss signing the refinancing paperwork. Love you, honey." Brooke stared at the text as if it were written in a foreign language. I laid out more documents. "You aren't the only one. This is my credit report. See this account? A $400,000 loan from First Arizona Bank. I never signed for it, and I didn't even know it existed until recently. But someone used my name, my social security number, and a forged signature to secure it." I looked her directly in the eyes. "The borrower listed is Mercer and Sons Construction, Dad's company." She shook her head repeatedly. No, that can't be right. Mom wouldn't. They altered Grandmother Helen's will too. I was supposed to inherit $180,000 and her home in Sedona. Mom took all of it." Our cousin Derek was forced into bankruptcy at 27 because they put his name on a loan he never signed. And over the past several months, they've been draining Grandmother Ruth's accounts. $45,000 is completely missing." Brooke pushed back from the table and stood up abruptly. "I need some air." "I can't. I need to step outside." She nearly knocked over her coffee as she hurried toward the exit without looking back. I didn't stop her. I gave her 5 minutes to process the weight of it all. Before following her outside, she was leaning against her car in the parking lot, mascara smudged along her cheeks from tears. 10 years, Evie. I gave them 10 years. I turned down better-paying jobs, I defended them to Kevin, and I even stood there while they shoved Yao out the door. She looked at me, completely shaken. "I thought as long as I stayed loyal I was safe. I thought being a good daughter actually mattered." "It didn't matter to them. It just meant you were easier to take advantage of." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "That dinner, it wasn't just about humiliating you, was it?" "No. My attorney figured out the strategy behind it." Brooke shook her head. "You don't know all of it. I was in the room when they planned it." I froze. "What do you mean?" 3 days before the dinner, Mom called me into Dad's office. She said they needed a family meeting regarding you. They claimed you were asking too many questions, that you somehow found out about the loan, and that you were going to cause trouble. Dad said the best move was to make you angry enough that you wouldn't come back, severing your ties before you could dig any deeper. Mom came up with the dinner idea, inviting everyone, making it public, and maximizing the humiliation to ensure you never felt welcome again. Her voice broke. "And I helped them. I agreed to push you out the door. I told myself I was protecting the family, but I was just protecting them without even knowing what I was protecting them from. I'm so sorry, Evie. I really am." I didn't see what was happening. I remained silent for a long moment. There was anger, of course, but beneath it was a deeper realization. You were manipulated too, Brooke. All of us were. That doesn't excuse what I did. No, it doesn't, but it explains why it happened. She reached into her bag and pulled out a manila folder. There's something else. George. The refinancing paperwork they want me to sign. I brought it with me. I wanted to ask what you thought about it. She handed the folder to me. I think you should see what they're actually trying to do. I opened it, scanning past dense legal terminology to find the key clauses. Then I spotted it. Brooke, this isn't refinancing. This is an unconditional personal guarantee. George. What does that mean? It means if you sign this, you become personally liable for all of Mercer and Sons' corporate debt. Not just your house. Everything you own would be at risk. The company is failing, and if it goes under, you go down with it. I flipped to the final page. 2 signatures were already present, Robert Mercer and Patricia Mercer. Brooke's line was still blank. George. They signed first to make it look like a formality. They're setting you up as their final shield so you take the financial fall when everything collapses. The look on Brooke's face shifted. Her tears stopped, and her confusion hardened into something far colder. What do you need me to do? What? You have an attorney. You have evidence, and you're building a case. George, what do you need from me to help? I looked closely at my sister, searching for any sign of hesitation or a setup. But all I saw was a woman who had just watched her life unravel and was deciding to stand up against it. I need you to play along a little longer. Go to the dinner tonight and act normal. Don't sign anything, but don't refuse outright either. George. Tell them you want your attorney to review it first. As long as they think you're still cooperating, they won't realize what's coming. And then what? Then we hold our own gathering. We invite everyone. All 35 relatives, to the exact same house. One evening to show everyone what Mom and Dad have actually been doing. Her eyes widened. You want to expose everything in front of the whole family? George. I want them to face every single person they've taken from. I want every lie brought to light in the very room where they pushed me out. The company anniversary party is in 2 weeks, and everyone is invited. Mom has been planning it for months. I knew she was going to face her own accounting. Brooke reached out and I took her hand. I helped them hurt you. Now let me help you stop them. George. Welcome to the team, Brooke. Before we parted, she stopped me. One more thing. The night before your dinner, I overheard Mom on the phone mentioning a situation with Whitman. That's Douglas Whitman, the attorney, right? Yes, it is. She said something about him becoming too clear-headed and needing to make sure he doesn't talk to the wrong people. What did she mean by that? George. I don't know, but she sounded genuinely worried. I've never heard Mom sound scared before. Douglas Whitman was a liability to them, and when Patricia Mercer felt threatened, she took action. Brooke, go to dinner tonight and stay alert. If they mention Whitman, Grandmother Ruth, or anything about resolving problems, let me know immediately. I'll send you the details for the burner phone. George. You know how to handle that, right? Brooke almost smiled. Grandmother Ruth isn't as subtle as she thinks. Last month I saw her hiding hers inside her knitting bag. I watched Brooke drive away. My sister, the person who had shoved me out the door, was now working with me from the inside. George. Her warning echoed in my mind. He's becoming too clear-headed, and we need to make sure he doesn't talk to the wrong people. I pulled out my phone and dialed the burner number for Grandmother Ruth. Grandma, I need you to check on Douglas tonight and make sure he's safe. What's going on? I'm not entirely sure yet, but I suspect they might try to silence him before we're ready. George. If they reach him first, we lose our primary witness who can prove the will was forged. By Thursday evening, I was standing at the dining table in Uncle Marcus's house, looking at the team we had assembled to hold them accountable. Marcus sat on my left, his arms crossed, his expression severe. George. Derek sat next to him, his fingers tapping on the table, looking like he couldn't wait to hand them a major defeat. Grandmother Ruth was in the chair closest to the door, her knitting bag at her feet, hiding the voice recorder inside. On the laptop screen, propped against a stack of books, Brooke's face shone softly. George. She was sitting in her car parked outside a grocery store, making sure no one at home could overhear. "Everyone is here," I said. "This is our team." I looked at each of them. "In 10 days, Mom and Dad are hosting the company anniversary dinner. 35 family members. The same house, the same room where they pushed me out. That is where we bring an end to all of this." Marcus leaned forward. "Orch, what exactly are we bringing an end to?" "Their lies, their control, and their ability to keep doing this to anyone ever again." I laid out the plan. The anniversary dinner had been scheduled for months. My mother had spent vast amounts of time preparing it. It was meant to be a grand celebration of the achievements she and my father built. Orch. Instead, it was going to be a complete accounting of all their thefts. Brooke would convince our parents that I wanted to resolve things, that I was broken, desperate, and ready to sign any document they put in front of me. That would give me a reason to show up at the dinner without raising suspicion. "Once everyone is gathered, we lay out everything," I said. "Orch." They turned throwing me out into a public display of humiliation. "Now, we turn revealing the truth into the ultimate reckoning." Grandmother Ruth spoke up from her chair. "I went to see Douglas last night, just like you asked. He's doing fine for now." But there was a new visitor listed on the sign-in sheet. A man named James Patterson. I asked the nurse, and no one remembered seeing him. Orch. A visitor using a false name. Someone who didn't want to leave a real identity while checking on a crucial witness. The list of people who wanted Whitman quiet was short, and my mother's name was right at the top. We spent the next hour assigning roles. Brooke would continue playing the loyal daughter, keeping us updated on our parents' moves and plans. Orch. She would plant the idea of inviting me to the dinner as a moment of family reconciliation, making them think they had won. "Let them feel completely confident," I told Brooke. Grandmother Ruth would keep volunteering at the care facility. On the surface, she was Patricia's way of keeping an eye on Whitman. In reality, she was our way of watching them. Orch. She would bring her voice recorder to the dinner, and when the moment was right, she would press play. "You've been underestimated your whole life, Grandma," I said. "Use that to our advantage." Marcus would stay completely out of sight until the dinner. His sudden appearance after 8 years of exile would be a massive shock to my parents, throwing them completely off balance. Orch. He would prepare his testimony regarding what he uncovered years ago, helping me organize the evidence into an indisputable case. "You were the first person they silenced," I told him. "This time, you'll be the first one to speak." Derek would write a detailed statement covering his forced bankruptcy, the forged signature, and the years he carried undeserved blame. Orch. He would also quietly reach out to other cousins who might have been affected. During Thanksgiving calls last year, he said, 3 different cousins mentioned strange letters about loans. At the time, I assumed they were just managing their finances poorly. Natalie would prepare all the official legal paperwork, including the criminal complaints and civil lawsuits. Orch. She would show up at the dinner, but without any advance warning. She would enter after the disclosures began, serving the legal documents to my parents in front of everyone. Nothing demonstrates that you've been caught quite like receiving official court summonses at your own party. When I was ready to begin speaking, I would adjust my necklace, a simple silver chain. Orch. That was the signal for Marcus to enter through the back door. His presence alone would completely shatter my parents' composure. That evening, my regular phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "Be careful. They know something is happening." An unnamed contact offering a warning without further details. Someone else knew what was going on. But whose side were they actually on? Orch. The night before the dinner, sleep was impossible. I stood at my apartment window, looking down at the parking lot. Parked across the street was a car I didn't recognize. The engine was off and the lights were dark, but a person sat in the driver's seat, looking straight up at my window. I squinted to read the license plate. Mercer and Sons Company, Fleet Vehicle Number 7. Orch. They had sent someone to watch me. I texted Brooke. "Someone is watching my apartment." Company car, her reply came quickly. Dad mentioned keeping close tabs on you yesterday. I thought he meant checking your social media. It went far beyond that. I called Natalie, and she advised me not to cancel the plan. Orch, if they truly knew what we were arranging, they would take far more extreme steps than watching the apartment. They were simply nervous, not certain, and nervous people make mistakes. I packed an overnight bag, drove to a hotel near Marcus's house, paid in cash, and registered under a different name. Orch. I texted the team, letting them know I would be going quiet until the dinner began, unless an emergency came up. On Saturday morning, my burner phone vibrated. Brooke's name showed on the screen, and I answered right away. What happened? Her voice was hushed and full of tension. Dad just asked me if I've talked to you recently, especially over the past week. What did you say? Orch. I told him we only spoke once, just to confirm you were coming tonight. He seemed to buy it, but… Evie. The way he looked at me, it was like he was trying to figure out if I was lying. He was suspicious, or perhaps just deeply paranoid. Either way, I told her, be extremely careful today. Don't go anywhere predictable. I processed the information. Orch. Robert had always been the strategist in the family. Patricia handled emotions and manipulation, while Robert handled threats. If he was questioning Brooke, he was unsure of her loyalty. That meant he was becoming uncertain about everything. He's making a last push or trying to gauge my reaction. Either way, we proceed as planned. See you tonight, Brooke. See you tonight, Evie. And… Orch. I'm really glad I'm standing on this side now. The view over here is much clearer. I showered and dressed carefully, nothing flashy, and nothing meant to win anyone over. Just a clean, professional outfit that projected confidence. I downloaded the presentation files onto my phone, testing the screencasting feature twice. Orch. I checked the spare USB drive in my pocket and confirmed with Natalie that law enforcement was informed and waiting nearby. Marcus texted, saying he would arrive at the back door at 6:15 p.m. Derek confirmed his documents were tucked inside his jacket. Ruth said her voice recorder was fully charged and that she would be sitting in the living room before anyone else arrived. Orch. Brooke sent a final update. The projector is set up. They tested it for Mom's slideshow this morning, and it's running fine. I sent one last text to the group. Tonight, we take back what they stole from us. Not just the money, but our names, our dignity, and our family. Orch. Then I drove into the upscale neighborhood where I grew up. A development filled with manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, and large homes flying American flags. My parents' house at the end of the cul-de-sac was fully lit, with cars parked all along the street. The family was gathering. I parked 3 blocks away, out of direct line of sight. Orch. Through the windows I could see figures moving around, hear laughter, and see glasses being raised. My phone vibrated with another text from an unknown number, different from the previous one. The projector password was changed this morning. It's Legacy 2024 now. You're welcome. Someone on the inside was helping me. A name starting with D. Daniela from accounting. Orch. She had warned me that first week, and she was still watching, standing on my side. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the house where everything began. It was time to bring this to an end. I stood on the front porch of my parents' house for the second time in 2 weeks, facing the same double doors I had walked out of in complete silence before. Orch. Inside, I could hear the hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, and practiced laughter. Through the frosted glass panels, I saw shifting figures. 35 relatives had gathered to celebrate a company built on stolen funds and unauthorized signatures. The last time I stood here, they cast me aside like garbage. This time, I was taking initiative. I didn't ring the bell. Orch. I pushed the door open and walked right inside. The entryway led straight into the living room, which was filled with familiar faces. The same folding chairs, the long borrowed tables, and the exact same people who watched my mother toss my photos into the trash without saying a word. As people noticed me, the chatter stumbled and then stopped completely. Orch. A few relatives looked deeply uncomfortable, while others seemed shocked that I had the nerve to show up. My mother emerged from the kitchen holding a glass of red wine. In a single second, her expression shifted from shock to anger, before settling into a practiced, fake smile. "Evelyn, you made it." She crossed the room with open arms and gave me a hug. Porch. I stood rigid, accepting it as part of the performance. She whispered in my ear, "Remember our agreement. Smile, sign the paperwork, and this all goes away." I lowered my voice and replied, "I remember everything, Mom." I pulled back, maintaining a neutral smile. "I'm ready to share what's on my mind." My father walked out from his study, his tie loosened, holding a glass of liquor. Porch. He looked at me as if I were a problem that had already been solved. "Evelyn. Brooke said you wanted to make things right." "Yes, Dad, I've had time to think about what actually matters." He narrowed his eyes, searching for any sign of deception. I kept my expression calm and open, a posture of defeat, exactly what he wanted to see. "Good. That's good. Porch. We'll talk after dinner." He produced a folder from nowhere. The same refinancing and personal guarantee documents Brooke had shown me. "Since you're here, we might as well handle this now and save everyone time." He flipped to the signature page, where his and my mother's signatures were already affixed. Brooke's line remained blank, and at the bottom, a new line carried my printed name. Porch. Just a formality. Family helping family. He held out a pen. I took the pen, looked at the document, and set it down on the table. "Of course, but before that, I'd like to say a few words in front of everyone to clear up any misunderstandings." Patricia interrupted immediately, her voice light and cheerful. "What a wonderful idea. Porch. Everyone will appreciate that." She was undoubtedly imagining me offering an emotional apology and restoring the family's picture-perfect image. Robert looked at her and nodded. "Fine. Keep it brief. Once you're done, you can sign." Patricia clapped her hands together. "Everyone. Evelyn has a few words she'd like to share. Let's give her our attention." Porch. The room went silent and 35 faces turned toward me. I walked over to the spot by the fireplace, the wall where my photos used to hang before they were removed. The projection screen had been pulled down for Patricia's planned slideshow highlighting company achievements. "Thank you all for being here tonight." Porch. "I know the last time I was in this room, things didn't end well." I paused, looking across the crowd. "But before I continue, I want to show you something." I pulled out my phone, opened the casting app, and entered the password Daniela had sent me. Legacy 2024. The projector flickered on. Patricia's expression changed immediately. "What are you doing?" Porch. "Making sure everyone understands what you're actually celebrating tonight." The first slide appeared on the screen, showing two documents side by side. On the left is my grandmother Helen's actual last will. On the right is the version certified by the court after her passing. Notice anything different? I zoomed in on the signature section. Porch. These signatures don't match because the one on the right was forged. A wave of low gasps swept through the room. Patricia turned pale. "Turn that off! Turn it off right now!" "I'm just getting started, Mom." The second slide appeared. "This is my credit report. See this account? A $400,000 loan from First Arizona Bank." Porch. "I never applied for this loan, and I didn't even know it existed until recently. But someone used my name, my social security number, and an unauthorized signature to secure it." I looked directly at my father. "The borrower listed is Mercer and Sons Construction, Dad's company." Robert's glass trembled violently, the ice clinking against the glass. "This is slander. You have no proof." Porch. "I have the complete records from the bank. I have every document, and every page carries your contact details." The third slide displayed a photo of Derek alongside his past bankruptcy filings. And I'm not the only one. Our cousin Derek was forced into personal bankruptcy at age 27 because someone placed his signature on a corporate loan without his knowledge. Derek stood up from the back row. Porch. "They told me I must have signed something carelessly and forgotten about it. They made me feel like I was responsible, and I lost my house because of it." Several relatives gasped. My Aunt Carol turned pale, whispering to her husband about a strange car loan letter they had received years ago. The pattern was far larger than anyone had realized. The screen then filled with Grandmother Ruth's bank statements. It gets worse. Grandmother Ruth's accounts have been drained of $45,000 over the past 6 months. Someone used a power of attorney document she has no memory of ever signing. Ruth stood up slowly using her cane, her stance firm. I trusted my daughter-in-law. I trusted my son. And they were taking my money behind my back. I am 79 years old, and those funds were meant for my care and healthcare needs. The next slide displayed Brooke's pension details. Then there's Brooke. Patricia tried to interrupt, her voice straining. Leave your sister out of this. For the past 10 years, Brooke contributed 8% of her salary every month into a company pension plan. But that pension plan never existed. No registration, no account, nothing. Roughly $90,000 completely missing. Brooke walked out from near the kitchen. I only found out 3 days ago. I worked for this company straight out of college, and they were taking my earnings the entire time. Patricia's composure broke down entirely. Brooke, you don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about, Mom. For the first time in my life, I see everything clearly. The next slide showed the home mortgage application. And to make sure Brooke couldn't escape when everything collapsed, just 3 days before the dinner, where you threw me out, Dad submitted paperwork attempting to leverage Brooke's home as collateral for a new loan without her knowledge or consent. You were willing to leave your eldest daughter without a home just to cover your own financial track. A commotion broke out at the back of the room, and everyone turned to look. Walking through the kitchen doorway was Uncle Marcus. No one in that room had seen him in 8 long years. Patricia's voice grew frantic. What is he doing here? Robert, get him out of here. Robert didn't move. He stood frozen in place. Marcus walked through the silent crowd and stopped beside me. Hello, Patricia. Robert, miss me? He turned to face the family. 8 years ago, I discovered what they were doing. Taking funds from Ruth, altering financial records, and using family members as financial leverage. When I confronted them, Patricia told everyone I was the dishonest one, turning my own family against me. I've spent 8 years on the outside watching, waiting for someone else to see the truth. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Evie uncovered it, and she had the courage to stand up where I couldn't. From the crowd, a young woman I didn't immediately recognize raised her hand. I'm Daniela from the accounting department at Mercer & Sons, she said into the quiet room. I'm the one who sent the projector password, and I have copies of all the records they tried to erase from the company servers last week. Ruth reached into her knitting bag and pulled out her voice recorder. There's one last thing. Over the past 6 months, I recorded every conversation I had with Patricia and Robert. She pressed play, and my mother's voice echoed through the room. The arrangements for Helen's estate are taken care of. Evie will never know what she was supposed to receive. The recording clicked to the next clip. Marcus was digging too close. We had to shut him down before he ruined everything. Then another. Ruth doesn't need to understand the details. She just needs to sign where I tell her to. The room erupted. Everyone began talking at once, shouting questions, accusations, and expressions of anger. In the middle of the chaotic scene, the front door opened. Natalie Vance walked in holding her briefcase, followed by 2 uniformed Phoenix police officers. Mr. and Mrs. Mercer, her voice carried clearly across the room. I am Natalie Vance, representing Evelyn, Derek, Ruth, and Brooke Mercer. We have submitted formal criminal complaints to the Arizona Attorney General's office regarding multiple counts of forgery, fraud, elder financial abuse, and identity theft. Additionally, you are formally served with civil lawsuits seeking full financial recovery. She handed a thick stack of legal documents directly into Robert's trembling hands. Patricia looked around the room, meeting the eyes of relatives who refused to look back at her. For the first time in my life, my mother had nothing to say. On Sunday morning, I woke up in my own apartment. The first time I had slept in my own bed in days. Porch. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, and my phone sat quietly on the nightstand in silent mode. For a moment, I forgot why my chest felt so heavy. Then everything came rushing back. The slides, the audio recordings, and the look on my mother's face when Natalie walked in with the police officers. It was over. Whatever came next, at least that chapter had finally closed. Porch. I turned off silent mode and watched the notifications stack up continuously. 43 text messages and 21 missed calls. None were from my parents, who had gone completely silent, but from cousins, aunts, and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years. Most were asking questions, some offered support, and a few voiced blame. Cousin Amy asked if it was all true. Porch. Uncle Frank mentioned checking his credit report and finding a loan he had never authorized. Aunt Carol wanted to speak because she suspected they had done something similar to her, while Great Aunt Mildred texted criticizing me for bringing family matters to light. Derek sent a short text. That was quite a night. Call me when you're ready, because our work isn't done yet. Porch. I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the weight of everything I had set in motion. I expected to feel a sense of triumph, but instead I felt exhausted, like finishing a long run through deep mud. Seeking accountability isn't a celebration. It's a necessary intervention. It was required, but not something to dwell on endlessly. Porch. Among the messages, one from an unknown number caught my eye. My name is Janine Whitman, Douglas Whitman's daughter. My father explained everything to me. I want to help. He has additional records you haven't seen yet. On Monday morning, I met with Natalie at her office for an update. Despite the chaotic 48 hours, she looked sharp and energized. Porch. The Attorney General's office is moving forward quickly, she said. Elder financial abuse is a major priority for them. She outlined the next steps. Formal criminal investigations against Patricia and Robert Mercer were underway, focusing on forgery, fraud, identity theft, and elder abuse. Porch. Douglas Whitman's formal deposition was scheduled for Wednesday, and the server backups provided by Daniela confirmed the deleted financial entries. Your mother attempted to erase records right after the dinner, but she didn't realize Daniela had already secured complete copies. There was more. Porch. Patricia's real estate firm launched an internal review, discovering irregularities in transactions she had handled over the years. Several clients close to Patricia had mismatched account details as well. This extends beyond just a family matter now, Natalie noted. There are likely other individuals affected who trusted her professionally. The dominoes fell faster than I anticipated. Porch. On Tuesday morning, Brooke sent a text. Mom was let go today. She was escorted out of the building by security. The real estate firm didn't wait for criminal trial outcomes. Their internal review found severe violations of company policy. Patricia's real estate license was suspended pending further investigation, bringing a 23-year career to an abrupt end. Porch. Wednesday brought worse news for my father. First Arizona Bank demanded immediate full payment on the $412,000 loan, which Mercer and Sons could not cover. Robert received notice that the business was being placed into receivership as part of bankruptcy proceedings. Decades of work, the legacy built by his father, and the identity he took pride in all unraveled. Porch. Every day brought additional revelations. Aunt Carol confirmed a car loan had been taken out in her name 3 years prior. Uncle Frank discovered an unauthorized second mortgage had been placed on his property. A distant cousin in Flagstaff contacted Natalie after discovering she was listed as a guarantor for equipment financing she knew nothing about. Porch. Pulling one thread revealed multiple new details. Douglas Whitman provided his formal deposition on Wednesday afternoon. I watched the live stream via Natalie's laptop. Though physically frail, his mind was clear. Porch. He detailed everything: how Patricia discovered past professional missteps he had made, how she used that information to pressure him, how he forged Helen's will under duress, and how he carried that weight for 2 years. "I knew it was wrong," he stated on camera. "I did it anyway. I don't ask for forgiveness, I just want the true account recorded." Orch. As the deposition ended, he looked directly at the lens. "Tell Evie I am sorry. Tell her Helen would be proud of her." Afterward, Janine Whitman handed a thick binder to Natalie. "My father kept copies of everything, every document Patricia pressured him to sign and every threatening email she sent. He knew this day would come and wanted to be prepared. On Thursday, my father called me directly. Orch. His voice sounded worn and desperate, nothing like the man who had demanded I pay for my upbringing. "Evelyn, we need to speak. As a family." "You mean you need me to drop the legal actions?" Silence followed. "The company is gone, your mother is out of work, and we are losing the house. Isn't this enough?" Orch. I listed his actions, clearly. "You used my name to cover your corporate debts, took grandmother Helen's funds, drained grandmother Ruth's savings, forced Derek into bankruptcy, tried to take Brooks home, and humiliated me in front of everyone I grew up with." I paused. "Is losing the house enough?" "I don't know, Dad." Orch. "When you were doing all of that to us, did you ever stop to think if it was enough?" He had no answer, and I ended the call. Patricia tried a different tactic, calling relatives one by one to garner sympathy, claiming I was misinterpreting events and that they were simply trying to keep the family afloat during difficult times. But most relatives saw through it, especially those who had already checked their own credit reports. On Friday, Natalie called me back to her office, where Daniela was waiting with her laptop. I found something else, something they definitely wanted to keep hidden. It was a spreadsheet saved inside a folder marked personal listing names, dates, amounts, and property addresses. It was a master log detailing every person Patricia and Robert had used as financial leverage or guarantors over a 15-year period. Not 6 people, not 10 people, 23 family members in total. They had treated the extended family as their personal resource to draw from at will. One entry stood out sharply: Ruth Mercer. Property address. Amount: $320,000. Status: pending. Their next planned move had been to sell grandmother Ruth's home. A week later, Robert and Patricia's legal team contacted Natalie with a settlement proposal. The terms offered to return my full inheritance and remove my name from all loans without an admission of guilt, provided I dropped all civil claims and signed a non-disclosure agreement. Natalie presented the offer objectively. Financially, it returns your funds, but it provides nothing for Ruth, nothing for Derek, and nothing for the other 23 people on that list. They would walk away without accountability. I looked at her. "Tell them my counteroffer: full return of every dollar taken from every person on that list, plus damages and a public acknowledgement of what they did." "They won't agree to that." Then we proceed to court. 2 weeks after the dinner, my parents placed their house on the market. The Scottsdale mansion with the wall where generations of family photos once hung, the living room where I was cast aside, and where we later laid out the truth. Brooke sent me photos showing moving trucks in the driveway. Patricia supervised the movers with a rigid expression, while Robert sat on the porch staring ahead. They were relocating to a 2-bedroom rental apartment across town. That house was once their symbol of status and success. Now it belonged to strangers. I felt an unexpected emotion, not triumph, but sadness. Not for them, but for the family that could have been, and for the relationships sacrificed for money that they ultimately couldn't keep anyway. On Friday afternoon, Natalie called me, her tone measured. The Arizona Attorney General's office just informed me of their decision. Patricia Mercer is formally charged with 12 counts of fraud, 4 counts of forgery, and 6 counts of elder financial abuse. Robert Mercer is charged with 8 counts as a co-conspirator. If convicted, they face significant state prison sentences. I sat down slowly. This was the outcome we worked for, yet the ground still felt uncertain under my feet. When is the arraignment? March. Monday. It will be public, and news outlets will likely cover it. My parents were going to appear on the news as criminal defendants. That evening, Brooke texted. Mom just called me screaming hysterically, saying she's going to fight this and that everyone will regret it. I read it twice and replied, let her try. The truth is already established. March. 4 months after the dinner, I sat in a courtroom gallery I never imagined visiting. Wooden benches, harsh lighting, and the quiet atmosphere of a formal proceeding. Sitting beside me were Brooke, Ruth, Marcus, and Derek. Across the aisle sat the few relatives who still supported my parents. March. At the defense table, Patricia and Robert Mercer looked far smaller and more worn down than I had ever seen them. The judge read the outcome in a clear, procedural tone. Patricia Mercer, found guilty on 9 counts of fraud, 3 counts of forgery, and 4 counts of elder financial abuse. Sentenced to 5 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 3 years. March. Robert Mercer, found guilty on 6 counts as a co-conspirator. Sentenced to 3 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 18 months. Both defendants are ordered to pay full restitution as outlined in the civil agreement. Patricia didn't cry. She stared straight ahead, her jaw set. Robert bowed his head, his shoulders dropping before he went still. March. Neither of them looked back at me, and I didn't need them to. I expected a rush of emotion, victory or relief. Instead, I felt like an observer watching 2 strangers face consequences for actions that broke a family apart. The parents I thought I had never really existed. Standing there were simply 2 people stripped of their pretense. March. As the bailiff placed handcuffs on Patricia and led her away, she turned and looked directly at me. Her lips moved without making a sound, but I clearly understood what she framed. This isn't over. Then she stepped through the side door. I remained there, considering whether it was a genuine threat or simply the final reaction of someone who had lost everything. March. A week after the sentencing, the civil case reached a complete settlement. With the criminal convictions established, my parents held no remaining leverage. March. Their attorneys secured the final terms, requiring full restitution to all 23 confirmed individuals. I received the full $180,000 inheritance return, plus $40,000 in damages. March. Derek received $80,000, plus $15,000 in damages. March. Ruth recovered her stolen $45,000, along with court-ordered independent oversight for her accounts moving forward. Brooke received $92,000 for her missing pension contributions. Other family members received amounts ranging from $5,000 to $60,000. Total restitution exceeded $1.2 million. The funds came from liquidating their assets. March. Selling the Scottsdale mansion yielded $420,000 after settling the primary mortgage. Robert's remaining shares in Mercer and Sons were acquired by new partners for $280,000. Patricia's retirement accounts were liquidated, totaling $190,000. Robert's truck was sold for $35,000. The image they spent a lifetime maintaining was completely dismantled to repay the money they had taken. Late one night, I reflected on the choices made. Had they simply asked the family for honest support when the business ran into trouble, people likely would have helped. Instead, they chose to take quietly behind everyone's backs, ultimately losing everything in full view of everyone. They could have chosen family, they chose money, and in the end, they were left with neither. Following Douglas Whitman's testimony and the verification of the original document, the court set aside the previous fraudulent probate filing. Helen Whitmore's estate was distributed according to her true wishes. The cottage in Sedona had been sold years ago, so I couldn't recover the physical home. But the court ordered Patricia to return the $245,000 from the sale. Combined with the initial cash bequest, I received the full inheritance Helen had always intended for me to have. I opened the official court documents in my apartment. Beneficiary: Evelyn Rose Mercer. Amount: $425,000. Source of funds: estate of the late Helen Marie Whitmore. I read it 3 times. My grandmother's voice echoed in my memory. Don't let them make you feel small. George. I used the money to pay off my student loans, established an emergency fund, and put down a deposit on a small house in Tempe Bay, having my own space with my own 4 walls. I also donated $20,000 to a nonprofit organization dedicated to preventing elder financial abuse. Grandmother Helen gave me a foundation, and I wasn't going to waste it. George. While organizing the estate paperwork, I found a note attached by the court clerk alongside a small, unopened envelope discovered in Helen's safe deposit box. Written on the front in her handwriting were the words, "For Evie. Open on your 30th birthday." My birthday was just 3 weeks away. After the dinner, Ruth's power of attorney was revoked immediately. George. She now had an independent financial advisor recommended by Natalie. Her accounts were secured, and for the first time in years, she was making her own choices completely on her own terms. I know exactly where every single dollar I have is located, she told me. It's an unfamiliar feeling, but a wonderful one. George. She decided to move into an independent living facility. Not because she was forced to, but because she wanted to. I've spent too much of my life living in homes controlled by other people. I want a place of my own where no one can dictate things to me. She selected a care facility in Mesa, near where Douglas Whitman had lived. George. Douglas passed away peacefully 2 years after providing his testimony. His daughter, Janine, visits Ruth regularly, and the two have developed a strong friendship. During a family lunch, Ruth raised her glass of iced tea. To the family we choose for ourselves, and to the granddaughter who stood up to fight back. I clinked my glass against hers. I learned from the best, Grandma. George. No, sweet girl. You showed us what we should have done years ago. 3 months after the verdict, Marcus attended his first family gathering in 8 years, a small backyard gathering at Derek's new apartment. The space was simple, but filled with people who genuinely wanted to be there. Relatives who had cut ties with Marcus years ago approached him to express regret. George. Uncle Frank shared that he had believed Patricia back then, admitting he should have asked more questions. Aunt Carol mentioned how wrong they were for blaming Marcus, expressing regret for past assumptions. Marcus accepted each conversation gracefully. You believed what they wanted you to believe. The only way forward is making sure we don't let something like this happen again. George. Of course, not everyone changed their perspective. Great Aunt Mildred still refused to speak with me, and a few cousins felt the situation was overblown, holding the view that family matters should have remained private. Family fractures don't resolve overnight. Sometimes they remain permanently damaged. I've learned to accept that reality. After the gathering, Marcus pulled me aside. George. 8 years. I waited 8 years hoping someone would see the truth, he said, his eyes welling up with emotion. You not only believed me, but you accomplished what I couldn't do on my own. Without the USB drive, without you introducing me to Derek, and without your support, I couldn't have done it either. I looked at him. I think we helped save each other. George. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt a sense of genuine resolution as I left the gathering. As I reached my car in the parking lot, a woman I didn't recognize approached me. She was in her 60s, well-dressed, but looking visibly anxious. Are you Evelyn Mercer? She asked. My name is Sandra Chen. George. Your mother served as my loan officer for 15 years, and I suspect there are irregularities with my accounts as well. Could we talk? The impact was continuing to expand. 2 months after the dinner, Brooke and Kevin finalized their divorce. It wasn't entirely due to the recent events. The distance between them had been growing, and this situation simply accelerated an inevitable end. George. He said he couldn't keep watching me compromise myself to appease our parents, Brooke told me. And once I stopped trying to appease them, there wasn't enough left to hold our marriage together. She left the failing operations at Mercer & Sons, and accepted a position as financial director for a nonprofit organization in Tempe. Porch. The salary was lower, but the accounting was legitimate and the environment was honest. She moved into a townhouse, began attending therapy, and started rebuilding her life. We meet for coffee every Sunday now. Not out of obligation to maintain an artificial routine, but because we genuinely want to connect. Porch. We aren't best friends, and maybe we never will be, but we've built a real sisterhood in a way we never had before. We aren't performing anymore, I told her. That's the real difference. We're actually communicating. One Sunday, Brooke brought a cardboard box with her. I found this while helping clean out Mom's storage unit for the auction, she said. Porch. Inside were letters, photos, and journals belonging to grandmother Helen. Patricia had kept them hidden for 2 full years. I walked back inside, stopping in front of the mantel where Helen's framed photo sat, lightly touching the glass. Happy birthday, grandmother. I think I finally understand what you meant. On that dinner night, they wanted me to disappear completely. Porch. They wanted my permanent silence. Instead, I became what they feared most, someone who refuses to look away from the truth. If you've followed this story to the end, and if something in your own life doesn't add up, trust yourself. You aren't imagining things, you aren't ungrateful, and seeking the truth is never a betrayal. The real harm is what happens when actions are kept in the dark. Porch. So turn on the lights. Flip every switch. You might be surprised to see who stands beside you in the light.